The CEO arrived in a wheelchair to test his secretary. But what she whispered left him breathless. When the mysterious CEO showed up in a wheelchair, no one at the company knew what to think, but the new secretary who greeted him that morning changed everything with a single whisper. What started in silence turned into a connection neither of them saw coming. And when the truth finally came out, not even love could protect them. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet chime, and every conversation in the lobby froze. Nathaniel Blake had arrived, but this time, something was different. He wasn't walking in like he always did, commanding attention with his perfectly tailored suits and quiet, magnetic authority. He wasn't striding through the hallway with that confident rhythm of shoes against marble. Instead, he was wheeled in, silent, still, in a sleek black wheelchair pushed by a discreet assistant. Murmurs swelled, but no one dared to ask what had happened. A car accident? A medical condition? It didn't matter. In the world of Blake Industries, Nathaniel's presence was power, and power didn't need explanations. He rolled through the polished corridor with the same cold precision he was known for. But this time, the world looked up from a different angle. Behind his sharp light blue eyes, something else churned. A quiet calculation. This wasn't an accident. This was a test, and only one person was being tested. Her name was Olivia Morgan. Exactly 34 minutes earlier, Olivia stood at the reception desk. Adjusting the sleeve of her sapphire blue dress, her copper-red hair spilled gently over one shoulder, catching the light every time she moved. Today was her first official day as Nathaniel Blake's executive assistant, and she was already 30 minutes early. First impressions, she whispered to herself, pulling in a calming breath. No mistakes. The receptionist, Carol, leaned closer. Just a tip. Don't try to be friendly with him. He doesn't do small talk or smiles. Olivia gave a soft chuckle, brushing a golden strand behind her ear. Thanks for the warning. Moments later, Olivia's phone vibrated. Incoming text. Floor 42, Conference Room A. Prepare materials and wait for Mr. Blake. She pressed the elevator button, her heart already racing. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. When the elevator doors opened again on floor 42, the assistant rolled Nathaniel in. Olivia turned at the sound of wheels. Her green eyes widened in surprise. For a heartbeat, she froze, then steadied herself. No gasp, no awkward stare, just a composed breath and a calm focus on his eyes instead of the chair. She stood, walked toward him without hesitation, and held the door. "Good morning, Mr. Blake," she said, her voice calm and clear. "It's nice to finally meet you." Nathaniel looked up, searching her face. No flinch, no awkward pause, no fake smile. She didn't stare at the wheelchair, she looked straight into his eyes. That was the first surprise. For a flicker of a second, Nathaniel felt exposed, like her gaze had slipped past the mask. He gave a faint nod. "Let's begin." For the next hour, Olivia handled everything with quiet precision. She offered files before he asked, brought water when she noticed his throat clear, answered questions with short, well-prepared responses. She didn't fumble once. She didn't try to impress. And most importantly, she didn't avoid him or overcompensate. She treated him like a man, not a headline, not a rumor, not a chair. Nathaniel was used to two types of people, the ones who feared him and the ones who wanted something from him. But Olivia, she didn't seem to belong to either group, and that made her dangerous. Or brilliant. He hadn't decided yet. When the meeting ended, he glanced at his watch. "Stay. I need to speak with you privately." She nodded, collecting her notes. As the door shut behind them, he spoke without looking up. "You've heard the whispers, haven't you?" Olivia tilted her head slightly. "About you being in a wheelchair?" His eyes flicked to hers. "And?" "And it's none of my business," she replied. He studied her, letting silence fill the space between them. She didn't squirm. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, tapping a finger against the armrest. "Most people get uncomfortable around weakness." "I haven't seen any weakness yet," she said gently. "Only a man adapting." That was the second surprise. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He was supposed to stay distant, controlled, but her words slipped beneath his defenses like smoke under a locked door. He looked down, then up again. "You're different." "I get that a lot," she replied with a small smile, then lowered her voice just enough to create an invisible bubble between them. "But you're not as unreadable as you think you are, Mr. Blake." His heart stopped for a second. "Excuse me." She stepped closer, leaned in, just enough for a whisper. Her green eyes locked onto his, and then she said it, words no one else could hear. "If you're pretending, I hope it's not because you've forgotten how to be seen." Nathaniel froze. She pulled back just as calmly, picking up her notebook again as if nothing had happened. "Will there be anything else, sir?" He stared at her, speechless for the first time in years. Because she knew, not just the chair, not just the act, she saw him. He nodded slowly. "You're dismissed." But as the door closed behind her, Nathaniel Blake felt something he hadn't felt in years, shaken. Outside the room, Olivia walked down the hall, her face calm, but her chest thudding. She hadn't planned to say that. It just came out, like her soul recognized something in him, like her own secret dared to reach out to his. Because Olivia Morgan had her own story, and she knew exactly what it felt like to pretend. Back in the office, Nathaniel sat in silence. He wasn't angry. He wasn't amused. He was curious. Who was this woman? Most people would have run or demanded answers, but not Olivia. She knew, and she stayed. That unsettled him more than the lie itself. And why, for the first time since his father died? Did he feel like someone might actually be worth trusting? He tapped his finger again, just once. The test had officially started, but so had something far more dangerous, emotion. Nathaniel couldn't focus. The morning had slipped into afternoon, and half a dozen executives had already paraded in and out of his office, updating him on contracts, numbers, projections. He hadn't heard a word. His mind was trapped, replaying that whisper like a vinyl record with a single scratch. "If you're pretending, I hope it's not because you've forgotten how to be seen." She couldn't have known. Could she? His secret had been carefully crafted. The wheelchair wasn't real. It was a deliberate mask, part of a personal experiment to uncover truth in the people around him, especially those closest. He'd built a world where loyalty was currency, and deceit lurked behind polished handshakes. He thought he was in control, but Olivia's whisper cracked something. And once a crack appears in glass, even silence can shatter it. Meanwhile, Olivia sat at her desk outside his office, pretending to type up notes. In reality, her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unmoving. She was replaying the moment, too. She'd broken protocol, crossed a line, whispered something that could have gotten her fired. But she hadn't meant to confront him. It wasn't about the chair. It was something in his eyes. That moment they met hers, like he was holding a breath he didn't know he needed to release. She understood that look. She'd worn it once, too. 3 years ago, Olivia Morgan had walked into a hospital room wearing her best smile, holding her mother's hand as the machines beeped steadily. Her mom, once the fiercest woman she knew, was fading, bit by bit, like color draining from a painting. And the world didn't pause for grief. Olivia had learned to smile through loss, to show up for jobs she didn't love, to be dependable, kind, pleasant. Because behind all that, there wasn't room for more pain until now. This job wasn't just a paycheck. Something about it felt different. Maybe because for the first time in a long time, someone was as guarded as she was. Late in the day, Nathaniel wheeled out of his office. Olivia stood, instinctively reaching for her notes. "Leave them," he said. She blinked. "Is everything okay, sir?" He looked up at her, expression unreadable. "Come with me." She hesitated, then followed without a word. They stepped into the executive elevator, just the two of them. As the doors closed, the silence stretched thick between them. Then, finally, he spoke. "You're not afraid of me?" It wasn't a question, more like an observation tossed into the air to see how it landed. Olivia glanced at him. "Should I be?" He didn't answer, just pressed the button for the parking garage. As the elevator descended, he turned slightly toward her. "You didn't flinch when you saw the wheelchair. You didn't ask questions. You didn't try to help in a performative way." She met his gaze. "Respect doesn't mean pity." Another silence. Then something flickered in his eyes. Maybe a hint of relief. When they reached the garage, he rolled toward a black luxury SUV parked by itself in the corner. The driver stepped out, holding the door, but Nathaniel didn't get in. Instead, he turned back to Olivia. "You said something earlier," he said softly. "That whisper." She tensed, instantly regretting it. "I crossed a line." "No?" He cut her off. "You saw through something no one else has. I need to know how." She paused. Her hands trembled slightly. Then she spoke, not carefully but honestly. "Because I've had to pretend too," she said. "To be okay, to smile, to show up and keep functioning. When inside I was barely holding it together." His eyes didn't leave hers. For the first time there was no CEO, no power dynamic, just two people, and something raw between them. He exhaled like the wind had just knocked out of him. And then he did something she didn't expect. He moved both legs, slightly. "I can walk," he admitted. "There's nothing wrong with me." Olivia didn't gasp. She didn't step back. Instead, her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I know," she said softly. "I was just waiting for you to tell me." Nathaniel froze. For years he had guarded that truth like a weapon, yet she had seen through it in a single day. And still stayed. That was the third surprise. She knew, and yet she stayed. That was the real surprise. Nathaniel leaned back in the chair, suddenly tired. This wasn't meant to go like this. Olivia tilted her head. "So why the act?" He looked away, jaw tight. "People treat you differently when they think you're broken. Some get closer, some disappear, some try to take advantage." "And you wanted to see where I'd land," she said, not accusingly, just understanding. "I did. And now?" Nathaniel looked up, the vulnerability in his gaze no longer hidden. "Now, I don't know what to do with you." Olivia gave a soft laugh. "You don't need to do anything, just don't push people away who want to stay." For a second the moment stretched too long, and then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. Emergency board meeting. Crisis overseas. Just like that, the real world came crashing back in. "I need to go," he said, wheeling toward the car. But before he disappeared inside, he looked back at her. "You're full of surprises, Olivia Morgan," she smiled. "You have no idea." That night, Olivia walked home through the city with the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders. The wind tugged at her copper hair, and the glowing buildings shimmered like something out of a memory. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she felt seen, and somewhere deep inside, so did he. Back in his penthouse, Nathaniel stared out over the city skyline, his burgundy jacket slung over the chair. He poured a glass of wine, but didn't drink it. Instead, he whispered her words again to the night. "If you're pretending, I hope it's not because you've forgotten how to be seen." And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. But tomorrow, the past would come knocking, and Olivia's patience would be tested in ways even he didn't see coming. The next morning, Olivia arrived 15 minutes early. Again. It was becoming a habit she didn't mind. The air in the office was quieter than usual, almost cautious, like it too sensed that something had shifted. Nathaniel hadn't spoken to her since the parking garage. He hadn't needed to. Some things don't require follow-up. Some silences aren't awkward, they're processing. She opened her laptop, began sorting files for a product launch meeting, and tried not to let her thoughts drift. But they did, to him. To the way his voice softened when the mask dropped. To the way he looked at her like she was more than an employee. To the fact that he'd trusted her with his biggest secret. And yet, it was her own secret she hadn't told anyone, not yet. Inside the executive suite, Nathaniel sat by the window, a tablet in hand. But his eyes weren't on the screen. He was watching the reflection in the glass. Olivia. Her red hair shimmered every time she moved. Her presence had become like music in a quiet room, not loud, not distracting, but impossible not to feel. He'd run this company for nearly a decade, built empires out of calculated risks, kept people at arm's length with elegant detachment. But she didn't play by those rules, and he wasn't sure he wanted her to. Still, there was something bothering him. A message from his past that had landed in his inbox late the night before. A name, Elena Ward. He hadn't thought about her in 2 years. And now she was requesting a private meeting. Today. No subject. Just a sentence. I'm in town. There's something you need to know. It's about your father. At noon, Olivia brought in coffee like she always did, placing it on the corner of his desk without interrupting him. But today, he looked up. Do you have plans after work? She blinked. Tonight? Not really. He hesitated. Would you come with me to a dinner meeting? Olivia raised an eyebrow. As your assistant or something else? He didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched, barely. Both. She hesitated. Who's the meeting with? Elena Ward. Olivia's breath hitched, the name unfamiliar. But the tone wasn't. Nathaniel's voice had dipped into something else. Old pain. Hidden cracks. The kind of emotion that doesn't show up in press conferences or quarterly reports. She nodded slowly. Okay, I'll be ready. That night they arrived at a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline. It was elegant but unpretentious. Dim lighting, soft jazz, a place meant for conversations people didn't want overheard. Nathaniel wore a black tailored suit, no tie, top button undone, confident as always. But Olivia noticed something else in him tonight. A flicker of nerves. She, on the other hand, wore a dark emerald dress that brought out the brightness in her green eyes, a quiet armor of grace. As they waited at the table, he glanced at her, not as a CEO, but as a man caught in a moment he couldn't control. You don't have to speak unless you want to, he said. I'll just listen, she replied. In case you need someone to remember how it really happened. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a second the clatter of the world faded. Then the elevator chimed behind them. Elena Ward walked in. She was tall, poised, with icy blonde hair tied into a smooth bun and lips painted crimson. Her eyes scanned the room like someone used to being noticed. When she reached the table, she didn't sit immediately. Nathaniel, she said, voice clipped but not cold. Elena, he replied, standing briefly out of habit. This is Olivia Morgan. Elena's gaze flicked to her and returned just as fast. Assistant? Trusted, Nathaniel said plainly. That earned him a brief pause. Elena finally sat. It's been a long time. Let's not waste it, he replied. What do you know about my father? Olivia's fingers tightened around the wine glass. She'd heard whispers about Nathaniel's late father, a brilliant but ruthless businessman, the founder of the company who died mysteriously just as Nathaniel took over. The press had called it a heart attack. Some insiders had suggested betrayal. No one really knew until now. Elena leaned in, lowering her voice. He didn't die naturally. The words landed like ice on the table. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. You need to explain that. Right now. I was working with him quietly. In the last 2 years before his death, she said. Your father was planning a full restructure, splitting the company, half to you, half to someone else. Who? He demanded. Elena's eyes didn't move from his. Me. Olivia sat back slightly, heart racing. Elena continued. We were partners, not romantically, don't worry, but business partners. Your father knew the company needed a different future. He wanted to protect you from what he was becoming. He didn't trust himself anymore. That makes no sense, Nathaniel snapped. He was the most controlled man I've ever met. Yes, she said softly, and that was exactly the problem. He had secrets, ties to people you don't know. He was trying to undo damage quietly before it collapsed. And you need to understand this, Nathaniel. Crosspoint was his design. Every encrypted line of code, every hidden protocol came from him. He built it, then realized too late what it had become. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair. Why are you telling me this now? Because someone is reopening the past, she said, and they're coming for you next. The table fell silent. Elena stood. I'll send the documents to your private email. But be careful, Nathaniel. You inherited more than his title. You inherited his enemies, too. Without waiting for a reply, she turned and walked away, heels echoing against the glass floor. Later, back in the car, Olivia sat quietly as the driver pulled away from the restaurant. I'm sorry, Nathaniel said suddenly. That wasn't fair to put you in the middle of. Olivia shook her head. You didn't. I offered to be there. He turned to her. Still, you didn't sign up for this. She looked at him, really looked, and then placed a hand gently over his. I didn't sign up for pretending, she whispered, but I'm here now. And I don't plan on disappearing. Nathaniel didn't speak. His fingers tightened slightly around hers. But outside the window, far behind them, a figure stood watching the car disappear into the night. Someone who had been waiting a long time, and who wasn't going to let the truth stay buried much longer. When rain tapped softly against the windows the next morning, as if the sky itself was trying to whisper something, inside the high-rise, the mood at Blake Industries was different, heavier. Like the building sensed its foundation wasn't just steel and glass, but secrets, and one had just started to unravel. Nathaniel didn't show up for his usual 8 a.m. check-in. He didn't send messages, didn't respond to calls. Olivia sat at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor on her screen, trying not to overthink. But the silence was already screaming. She kept replaying last night. Elena's warning, Nathaniel's hand gripping hers, and that final look he gave her before stepping out of the car, like he wanted to say more, but didn't trust the air around them. And that worried her most. Not what he said, but what he didn't. At exactly 9:23 a.m., the door behind her opened. She turned, expecting him. But it wasn't Nathaniel. It was Marcus Reed, head of corporate security, a man whose jaw was carved from granite, and a man whose reputation was built on secrets, maybe even dangerous ones. Morning, Miss Morgan, he said flatly. You were the last person seen with him. That makes you either useful or dangerous. I assumed he was with you, Olivia replied. Carefully. Marcus didn't blink. He missed 2 encrypted pings. We're initiating protocol. What protocol? He stared at her a little too long before answering. The one we use when someone close to him might not be what they seem. He leaned forward, his eyes cold. Your father trusted me to protect Crosspoint. And I did, for years, until I realized protecting it meant serving lies. So now I protect it, my way. The system matters more than Blake, or anyone else. Olivia's heart thumped. Wait, you think... I think you were the last person seen with him, Marcus interrupted, so you're coming with me. She stood, bracing herself. I'm not leaving until I know he's okay. Marcus didn't argue, just nodded to two other agents who had appeared like ghosts in tailored suits. That's exactly what we're going to find out. As the agents escorted Olivia out, Marcus fell a few steps behind, lifting a secure comms device to his mouth. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Target secured. Proceed with Phase 2. A burst of static answered, followed by a single word. "Understood." Marcus slid the device back into his pocket, his expression unreadable. For years he had sworn loyalty to Blake, but loyalty was just another mask. And tonight, he had taken it off. They took her to a secure room 3 floors below the lobby. No windows, 1 table, 2 chairs, 1 camera in the corner, blinking red like a watching eye. Olivia folded her arms, refusing to show the fear creeping up her spine. Marcus sat across from her. "You were with him last night?" "Yes." "At a meeting he asked me to attend." "With Elena Ward." Olivia blinked. "You know about her?" "We know everything that affects Mr. Blake's safety." He leaned forward. "And that includes you now." Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten. "I don't know where he is," she said, "but if you're trying to find him—" "You're wasting time down here." Marcus didn't respond. He just slid a thin tablet across the table and tapped the screen. A still image appeared. Nathaniel and Olivia, on the rooftop, hand in hand, then another image. A man standing on the sidewalk, watching, zoomed in, face grainy, unfamiliar. Marcus's voice dropped to a near whisper. "This man has been following Mr. Blake for months. We haven't been able to ID him, but we saw him again last night." Olivia's pulse quickened. "Then find him," she snapped. "Not me." Marcus stood slowly. "We're doing both. For now, you're staying here until I get clearance." He left the room. But not before turning to say one last thing. He paused at the door, his eyes cold. "You're not the only one keeping secrets, Miss Morgan. The difference is, I find mine useful." Back upstairs, the office buzzed with quiet panic. But on floor 44, behind a fingerprint-locked door no one knew existed, Nathaniel Blake sat in silence. He wasn't missing, he was hiding. The documents Elena had sent him the night before revealed things that didn't make sense. Internal betrayals. Old names reappearing, hidden shares of the company transferred without his consent, signed in his father's name after his death. But one document stopped him cold. A scanned letter, handwritten. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident, and you can't trust Marcus. Your father." Nathaniel stared at the page. His stomach turned. Marcus Reed. The man who had protected him since he was 19. The man who swore loyalty to the Blake name. The man who had just detained Olivia. He slammed his fist on the table. This had gone too far. 2 floors below, Olivia sat alone, tracing the edge of the table with her finger, trying to breathe. That's when the door clicked. But it wasn't Marcus. It was Nathaniel, wearing the same black suit, the same unreadable expression. But his eyes, they burned with fire. Olivia stood up instantly. "You're okay." He stepped inside, closed the door, and looked her in the eye. "I'm sorry," he said. Before she could answer, he reached for her hand and pulled her into a fierce, unexpected embrace. It caught her off guard, not just the contact, but the desperation in it. Like a man who had just found something he thought he'd lost. "I never meant to drag you into this," he whispered. "You were just supposed to be real, safe." Olivia blinked, the scent of rain still clinging to his coat. "I am real, Nathaniel." He pulled back, searching her face. "Do you trust me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Yes." "Then I need you to leave, tonight. Just for a few days. Go somewhere quiet. I'll send protection. But you can't stay here." "Why?" she asked, heart racing. "Because Marcus isn't who I thought he was," he said. "And he thinks you're the weakness I can't afford to have." The words hit like a punch. "But I'm not leaving you." "You have to," he cut her off. I can't focus on fixing this if I'm worried about you getting caught in the crossfire." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Just promise me one thing." "Anything." "Don't shut down again," she whispered. "Don't hide behind chairs or suits or silence. Whatever you're facing, let me in when you're ready." Nathaniel stepped forward and touched her cheek gently. "You already are in, Olivia." He kissed her forehead, softly, like a fragile truth, then turned and left, without looking back. That night, Olivia boarded a train to a small coastal town 2 hours away. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing: this wasn't just about a test anymore. This was a war. And somewhere inside Blake Industries, someone was about to make their next move. The train sliced through the darkness like a silent arrow. Olivia sat by the window, her reflection blending with the blur of city lights behind her. Her hands were clasped in her lap, trembling ever so slightly, not from fear, from everything else. She had never felt so far from the life she thought she was building, or so close to something she didn't yet understand. One moment she was a secretary, navigating office politics and scheduling meetings. And the next, she was being whisked away under threat, because she mattered to someone powerful enough to be hunted. To someone who had whispered, "You already are in," and that was the most terrifying part. Because Olivia Morgan had learned the hard way what it felt like to be let in, only to be left behind. She wasn't sure she could survive it again. Back in the city, Nathaniel paced the rooftop of his penthouse, phone pressed to his ear, wind tugging at his jacket like invisible hands trying to warn him. "You sure she's secure?" he asked. On the other end, his personal bodyguard, Liam, replied firmly. "She's checked in under an alias. We have 2 guards posted and a 3rd monitoring the perimeter. No one's getting near her." Nathaniel exhaled, but the knot in his chest didn't loosen. "Keep her safe," he said. "Even from me, if it comes to that." There was a pause. "Understood, sir." He hung up and stood alone under the city sky. Every part of him wanted to go after her, to sit beside her and promise that no storm could touch her. But promises were dangerous when you weren't sure who still had a knife behind their back: Marcus, his father, Elena, and the man in the photo. It felt like every truth he'd ever believed was being rewritten in someone else's handwriting. Down in the secured operations floor of Blake Industries, Marcus stood in front of a surveillance screen, watching a paused frame from inside the interrogation room. Olivia sitting across the table, hands folded, calm. Too calm. He didn't like it. Behind him, his assistant, Vaughn, stood silently. "You ran the trace on her background again?" Marcus asked. "Yes, clean, no criminal record. Graduated top of her class. Previous employers only had good things to say." "And yet she saw through Nathaniel's act in a single day," Marcus noted, his tone flat. Vaughn hesitated. "You think she's planted?" Marcus didn't blink. No one sees through a mask that fast, unless they've worn one themselves. He walked to a side panel, inserted a key, and unlocked a secure drawer. Inside was a black folder marked Cross Point. It had been untouched for 6 years, until now. "Pull the files on her parents," Marcus said. "Start with her mother." "Why?" Vaughn asked. Marcus turned, eyes cold. "Because Olivia Morgan might not be here by accident." Olivia stepped off the train just as dawn broke across the coastal sky. The small town was quiet, the air thick with salt and silence. She checked into the inn under the name Claire Devlin, the name Nathaniel had chosen for her alias. It had belonged to someone he once trusted, his childhood nanny. It felt oddly intimate, like she wasn't just being hidden, she was being protected. Inside the room, she collapsed onto the bed, still fully dressed. But sleep wouldn't come. Not because she was scared, but because something didn't add up. Why had Nathaniel trusted Marcus for so long? And why was his father trying to split the company with a woman no one had ever heard of? Elena had said the company was being targeted, But what if it wasn't the company? What if it was him? Her thoughts spiraled until her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Olivia, we need to talk. You're not in danger yet, but there are things you don't know. Meet me at the pier. 9 a.m. Elena. Nathaniel stared at the document again, his father's signature. Post-dated. After death. It didn't make sense. The man was meticulous. He would never leave loose ends, especially not ones this sloppy. Unless he wanted someone to find it. Nathaniel opened his encrypted safe, pulling out a flash drive with a single name etched on the casing. J. Cross. He hadn't looked at it in years. It had been given to him by his father during their final conversation, the night before he died. A conversation filled with tension, unfinished thoughts, and a single line Nathaniel never understood. "One day you'll wish I was the villain. It'll be easier than the truth." He inserted the flash drive. Inside, one video, dated 2 days before his father's death. He clicked play. The screen lit up with the image of his father, older, gaunter than Nathaniel remembered, sitting in the same chair Nathaniel now used in his office. "If you're watching this, I'm gone, and if I'm gone, someone made it happen. You've always trusted Marcus. I did too, until I didn't. Look into Crosspoint, look into Elena, and if you've met Olivia Morgan already, protect her. She has no idea who she is, but she's the key to all of it." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. He paused the video, rewound. She has no idea who she is. What the hell did that mean? He opened a new file on his laptop, typing quickly. Olivia Morgan. Parents, background, ties to Blake Industries? And for the first time, he doubted whether Olivia's presence in his life had been fate or a move in a game she didn't even know she was playing. At 9 a.m. sharp, Olivia stood on the empty pier. The wind pulled at her copper-red hair, and waves crashed softly against the wood beneath her feet. She scanned the horizon. Then, footsteps. Elena appeared, trench coat pulled tight, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "You came?" she said. "You left me no choice," Olivia replied. They stood in silence a moment before Elena said something Olivia wasn't ready to hear. "Your mother used to work for Nathaniel's father," Elena said. Olivia froze. "No, she didn't. My mother was a teacher. She worked at a school." Elena shook her head. "She did, in the beginning. But her real name wasn't Morgan. It was Amelia Ward. She was recruited quietly and became part of his personal protection detail. And more than that..." Elena paused, her voice low. "Olivia, your mother wasn't just a guard. She helped him build parts of Crosspoint. She wrote lines of the encryption code herself. She left her mark in it, literally." Elena's voice dropped even lower. "He wanted a lock no one could fake. So he tied it to something unchangeable. Blood." Olivia frowned, confusion flickering across her face. "Blood?" Elena nodded. "Yes. The key was written in her, whether she wanted it or not." Olivia's breath caught, her fingers tightening on the photograph. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "That piece of her lives on," Elena replied, "whether you realize it or not. And I warned her it was too dangerous to stay close to him, because I knew about Crosspoint. Everyone close to your father did." Olivia's voice trembled. "So my real name should have been Ward?" Elena nodded. "Yes. Your mother changed it to protect you, to keep you hidden." Elena reached into her coat and handed Olivia a photo. A black and white image. A woman, unmistakably Olivia's mother, standing beside a younger version of Nathaniel's father, wearing a security badge. "I don't understand," Olivia whispered. "Neither did she," Elena said, "until it was too late." Suddenly, the wind felt colder, the waves louder. Because everything Olivia believed about her past was starting to crack, and someone somewhere was getting closer to the truth, faster than she ever imagined. Olivia stared at the photograph in her hands, her fingers trembling. Her mother, barely older than Olivia was now, stood beside a man who looked hauntingly like Nathaniel. Same posture, same sharp eyes, but colder, harder. The photo was old, grainy, but there was no mistaking the truth. "I don't understand," Olivia whispered again, her voice breaking. "She never told me anything about this." "She couldn't," Elena said, calm but not unkind. "The people your mother worked for made sure of that. Your birth was complicated. You were protected from what she knew, maybe even from who you are." Olivia's stomach twisted. She thought of her mother. Gentle, warm, fragile in her final years. How she used to hum old songs while brushing Olivia's hair, how she always avoided talking about her younger days. Back then, Olivia thought it was trauma, or maybe just sadness. But now she realized it had been fear, real fear. She stepped back, eyes wide. "Are you saying I'm part of this? Of whatever Nathaniel's father was hiding?" Elna sighed, watching the ocean like it had answers. Not by choice, but by blood, back in the city. Nathaniel was unraveling the same thread. He sat in his office, files spread out across the floor, laptop open to a genealogy program he'd never imagined using. The documents he had pulled on Olivia's family, public ones at least, painted a surface-level picture, middle class, no criminal records. A quiet life in a small town. But there were gaps, too many. Birth certificate, partially redacted. Hospital records, missing the doctor's signature. And most disturbing, Olivia's mother, Amelia Morgan, had no digital trace for the first 22 years of her life, as if she simply didn't exist before that. He ran a reverse search on the photo Elena had included in her encrypted message. Within seconds, a match appeared in an old private security database. Amelia Ward. Private Protection, Internal Affairs Division, Blake Industries. Clearance level, Alpha 5. Date of exit, classified. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, heart racing. "Amelia Ward. Amelia Morgan," he whispered. "She changed her name." His eyes darted back to the screen. Another record. Elena Ward. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Search. Amelia Ward. Elena Ward. Connection? A file popped up. Sisters. Nathaniel froze. His breath caught. Oh my God. Olivia's mother wasn't just Amelia Morgan. She was Amelia Ward, which makes Elena her aunt. And Olivia. He stopped, the weight of it hitting him. She was born a Ward. Back at the pier, Olivia clutched the photo as if it were the only thing tethering her to reality. "You've known this all along?" she asked, her voice sharp. Elena nodded once. "I watched you grow up from a distance. Your mother wanted a clean life for you. After she left the organization, she made me promise never to contact you. But after she died, I couldn't sit still anymore." Olivia swallowed hard, her throat burning. "Why now?" she asked. "Why tell me all this now?" "Because the people your mother ran from," Elena said. They never forgot. And now that Nathaniel's starting to pull back the curtain, they're watching both of you. Elena reached into her coat again and pulled out a small envelope. "Inside is the last thing your mother gave me before she disappeared. She said to give it to you, only if your life ever started to intersect with his." Olivia stared at her. "With Nathaniel's," Elena nodded. "And it has." With shaking hands, Olivia opened the envelope. Inside was a folded note, handwritten in faded blue ink. "Liv, if you ever find this, it means the truth caught up to us. You were born into something I tried to protect you from. And someone you'll one day need to protect. I couldn't tell you everything, but I know you'll understand when the time comes. Don't run. Don't hide. Just remember, he isn't the enemy. Love always, Mom." Tears slid down Olivia's cheek before she could stop them. This wasn't just about corporate secrets or power games anymore. This was her legacy. And Nathaniel wasn't just a man she was falling for. He was at the center of a storm she was born into. Hours later, Nathaniel stood in the underground garage of Blake Tower, pacing near his private car. He dialed Olivia's number. Voicemail. He tried Liam, straight to voicemail. Something was wrong. Just then, his phone lit up. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Blake. A voice, masked and distorted, replied, Your father wasn't the only one who built Crosspoint, and you're not the only one who has the keys. The call ended. Nathaniel froze. Someone else had access. And worse, they knew he didn't know who. Back at the Coastal Inn, Olivia sat on the bed, the note from her mother open beside her, when the power flickered. Once, twice, then darkness. The room went silent. Her pulse quickened. She stood slowly, reaching for her phone. No signal. Then, a knock on the door, 3 soft taps. She approached. Hesitant, heart racing. Who is it? She called out. No answer. Another knock. She backed away. Suddenly, a voice came from behind the door. Low, calm, and terrifyingly familiar. I'm not here to hurt you, Olivia. It was Marcus. You shouldn't have left the city. Now you've made yourself a target. In the shadows, Nathaniel stood before a locked vault in the basement of the old Blake estate, a property he hadn't visited in over 10 years. He placed his hand on the biometric scanner. Welcome, Nathaniel, the system chimed. The door opened with a heavy creak. Inside, rows of old files, tapes, and confidential records sat in dust-covered shelves. But he wasn't looking for documents anymore. He was looking for something his father had hidden, something Elena had hinted at, the other half of Crosspoint, and maybe the truth about Olivia. Back at the inn, Olivia stood frozen as Marcus slowly opened the door and stepped into the room, hands raised, unarmed. I'm not your enemy, he said, voice calm. I'm your protector. I've always been. She didn't believe him. Then why was I locked up yesterday? Because I needed to know who you were, and now I do. He stepped closer, too close. You're the last piece. You always have been, and you're in danger. Olivia, she swallowed. From who? He looked her dead in the eye. From Nathaniel. Olivia stood frozen, her back pressed against the cold wall of the inn room. Marcus was in front of her now, calm, collected, terrifyingly measured. No weapons, no threats, just a statement that shattered everything she thought she understood. You're in danger, Olivia. From Nathaniel. Her pulse thundered in her ears. No, she said, her voice shaking. You're lying. I wish I were, Marcus replied me, but I knew his father, intimately, better than Nathaniel ever did, and I know what was passed down to him. Passed down, she echoed. Confused, Marcus took a slow step closer, his voice lowering. Crosspoint isn't just a company secret, it's a surveillance and control system, built to watch, record, and manipulate. Markets, governments, people, every secret it collects becomes a weapon. Olivia's heart dropped. He wasn't talking about a scandal. He was talking about something criminal, something deep. And Nathaniel, Marcus continued, has the other key. She shook her head slowly. No. He didn't even know what Crosspoint was until recently. I was there when he found out. You were there when he said he found out, Marcus corrected. That's not the same. He pulled a small device from his coat, a flash drive, and set it on the table between them. This came from one of Blake's hidden accounts, files he never wanted you to see, records, codes, conversations, enough to show he isn't the man you think he is. Olivia didn't move. Marcus leaned in slightly, his voice low and deliberate. Blake isn't who he says he is. You can believe me, or you can keep pretending. Either way, the truth will catch up to you. The words hit her like glass. Because she did have doubts about how Nathaniel had started avoiding certain questions. About the way he was always one step ahead, even in things he wasn't supposed to know. But part of her didn't care, because she had felt his pain. She had seen the man underneath the CEO mask. She had been inside his heart, if only for a moment. And that moment had felt real, still. What's on the drive? She asked quietly. Marcus handed it to her. Watch it. Alone. Then decide what you believe. He stepped back, opening the door behind him. I'm staying at the motel across the street. You have until morning. After that, you'll need to choose who you're standing with. And then he was gone, leaving behind only the sound of her breathing, the echo of his words, and a silver flash drive that could burn everything down. At the old Blake estate, Nathaniel stood in the center of the underground vault, staring at a black steel box resting at the bottom of a locked cabinet. The biometric scanner recognized his fingerprint instantly. The box hissed open. Inside, 3 items, a letter, a ring, and a microchip, labeled Crosspoint Protocol Override. Nathaniel picked up the letter, unfolding it with care. Nate, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. There are people who will come for you, claiming to be protectors, but they are wolves in suits. Crosspoint was my design, my vision. I built it believing I was safeguarding our future, but what I created became a weapon, my greatest mistake. You have the final override. It was never meant for anyone else. I never gave you this company to rule, Nathaniel. I gave it to you to end what I couldn't. To finish what I started and free our name from it. Destroy it. Walk away. Let the company rebuild in the light. And if one day you meet someone who sees past the mask, protect her with your life. She will be the key you cannot be. Nathaniel's throat tightened. He didn't know what stunned him more, the truth about Crosspoint, or the importance his father had placed on Olivia. He picked up the ring, a simple silver band, his father's old crest. Underneath, etched into the metal, was a single word: Ward. Everything connected now. Amelia Ward, Elena Ward, Olivia Morgan. They weren't just names in a past file. They were the key to all of it. But if Marcus had found out first, Olivia could already be in danger. In the inn room, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the flash drive Marcus had given her. The room was silent except for the storm beginning to rise outside, rain drumming against the glass like restless fingers. With trembling hands, she plugged the flash drive into her laptop, files loaded. Dozens of folders, dates, encrypted documents. She clicked on a video file marked Private Communication Nathaniel B. Her screen lit up with a hidden camera recording, grainy but clear. Nathaniel sat in a dark room, speaking to someone off camera. She's closer than I thought. I can't let her know everything yet. Not until I figure out what she really wants. A muffled voice answered off camera, but the audio cut out with static. Nathaniel leaned forward, his tone sharp. We need to keep Olivia near. If she finds the truth too early, she might run. Or worse, turn on us, just like her mother did. The screen flickered, ending abruptly, mid-sentence, as if someone had stopped the recording. The screen flickered. I'll earn her trust, and when the time is right, I'll make her choose. The video ended. Olivia sat frozen, tears pooling in her eyes, but not falling. Not yet. She didn't know when that video had been recorded. She didn't know who he had been talking to, and she didn't know if any of it was even real, but the words cut like knives. I'll earn her trust, and when the time is right, I'll make her choose. Back at the estate, Nathaniel hit dial on Olivia's secure line, straight to voicemail. Again. He sent a message instead. I found something about your mother, about you. Call me as soon as you can. I swear I'll explain everything. He stared at the message long after it was sent, praying it wasn't already too late. Because if Marcus had reached her first, everything could already be falling apart. The rain poured harder now. And inside the dim room, Olivia closed her laptop. She stood, walked slowly to the window, and stared out into the night. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating her reflection. For the first time, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. She didn't know who to trust, didn't know if the man who held her hand and whispered, "You already are in," had ever really meant it. But she knew one thing: morning would bring a choice, and either way, someone's mask would fall. Morning came without sunlight. Clouds hung low over the coastal town, heavy and gray, mirroring the weight inside Olivia's chest. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. Marcus's flash drive still sat on the desk like a loaded weapon. Nathaniel's message blinked on her screen, unopened. Her mother's letter, folded, soft-edged, and tear-stained, lay by her bedside like a memory refusing to fade. The video, it played again and again in her mind. I'll earn her trust. And when the time is right, I'll make her choose. But choose what? Choose who? Everything in her told her Nathaniel wasn't that man, that he couldn't have been speaking about her like she was a pawn. But the doubt had been planted, and it was growing. Still, a deeper voice inside her whispered something else. Ask him. Look him in the eyes. Don't run. Don't guess. Find the truth for yourself. She glanced at her phone again, and this time she opened the message. I found something. Something about your mother, about you. Call me as soon as you can. I swear I'll explain everything. She held the phone to her chest and breathed in deeply. Then she texted back, we need to talk, face to face, no more secrets. The reply came instantly. Meet me at the Blake estate, noon. It's time. Nathaniel stood by the tall window of his father's old study as thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm hadn't reached the city yet, but it was coming. The kind that made the air feel tight, electric. He hadn't been in this room for years, not since the funeral, not since the secrets were still buried. But now, everything was out in the open, or dangerously close. The video he had decrypted from his father's vault proved that Crosspoint wasn't just a database. It was a global network built to collect every hidden weakness, every secret, and use them to bend outcomes. Boardrooms, governments, even wars, all controlled from the shadows. It had the power to ruin anyone, and it was never meant to fall into the wrong hands. His father, for all his cruelty, had understood the cost of control. Nathaniel hadn't. Until now. He didn't want this power. He wanted to destroy it. But first, he had to know where Olivia stood, and whether her heart still beat for the man she met, or the monster Marcus had painted. At 11:52 a.m., Olivia arrived at the estate's heavy iron gates. A black car idled out front, Marcus inside. He stepped out as she approached, holding a small umbrella. Last chance, he said quietly. You walk through those gates, you don't come back the same. She looked him in the eye. Neither will he. Then she walked past him. Inside, Nathaniel turned as the door creaked open. And there she was, soaked from the rain. No makeup, hair tied back, face pale but eyes sharp. A storm wrapped in elegance. Live, he said softly. Don't, she interrupted. She walked into the room slowly, eyes scanning everything, the old books, the faint scent of whiskey and cedarwood, the lingering presence of a man who haunted them both. His father. Nathaniel stepped forward. I was afraid you wouldn't come. I almost didn't, she admitted. He watched her carefully. You saw the video. She nodded once. Tell me it's not real. Nathaniel looked down. It's real. Her heart shattered a little more. But, he added quickly, lifting his gaze, it's not what you think. Olivia crossed her arms. Then explain it, all of it, because if you don't right now, I walk away. And I never look back. Nathaniel walked toward the desk and picked up the ring from the vault. He held it out to her. This belonged to my father, he said. Look underneath. She turned it over, saw the word engraved beneath. Ward. Her breath caught. He loved your mother, Nathaniel said. I don't mean romantically. I mean he trusted her. She was one of the few people who challenged him, who tried to stop him from building Crosspoint the way he did. Olivia swallowed. So what happened? She walked away, he said, and took you with her, because she knew the people who wanted that power would come after anyone close to it, especially you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Why me? Because your mother helped write the original encryption protocol for Crosspoint. She encoded the biometric key using her own genetic markers, which you inherited. That's why half of the override is in your DNA. Olivia blinked, stunned. What? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. The flash drive? The one Marcus gave you? It's real, but it's manipulated. He took a recording from a security debrief, cut out the context, and left only the pieces that looked like betrayal. You didn't see everything. You saw what he wanted you to see. I was protecting you, not planning to deceive you. Olivia stared at him, emotions colliding inside her. Anger, hope, doubt, love. Then why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked. Nathaniel's voice cracked. Because I didn't want to lose you. She blinked back tears. You already did. The words hung in the air like thunder. Silence. Then he stepped even closer, just inches between them. I never pretended with you, Olivia, he said. Not once. Not in that garage. Not in that car. Not the night I held your hand and asked if you trusted me. Her lip trembled. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then believe this, he whispered. You are not a pawn. You are not a tool. You are the only person who has ever looked at me and seen a man worth loving. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry, he said, voice cracking. I'm sorry I let you find out the way you did. I'm sorry I didn't say it when I should have, but I need you to hear it now. He stepped forward, and for the first time, no masks, no walls, no games. I love you, Olivia. Silence, tears, breathing, then her voice. Barely a whisper. I love you too. But just as she reached for him, a loud crash echoed through the estate. Glass shattered. Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Nathaniel froze. What the hell? The door burst open. Vaughn, Marcus's assistant, bleeding from the shoulder. They're here, he gasped. Yeah. They found the override chip. They're coming for it, and they're not leaving without it, or without her. Nathaniel turned to Olivia. We run. But deep down, they both knew they couldn't run forever. Sirens in the distance, glass still crackling on the hallway floor, and the sharp metallic scent of blood hung in the air like a warning. Nathaniel locked eyes with Olivia, his voice low and urgent. We have to go. Now. She didn't argue. She was already moving. He grabbed the override chip from the vault's desk and slipped it into the lining of his coat. With one hand on her wrist, he pulled her through the back corridor of the estate, through a passage only he and his father had ever used. Behind them, Vaughn staggered against the wall, holding his bleeding shoulder. Go, he grunted. I'll buy you 5 minutes. Vaughn. I said, go. Nathaniel nodded once, grim, then turned and disappeared into the shadows, Olivia right behind him. The passage was narrow, lined with dust and silence. It opened out into the old greenhouse at the back of the property, long abandoned, overgrown with vines. Olivia pushed through thick branches, heart racing, the ground slick from the morning rain. Where are we going? She asked, breathless. There's a car hidden in the north field, Nathaniel said. No tracker, old engine, no digital trace. He reached into his coat and handed her a small case. What is this? She asked. The backup drive? Everything about Crosspoint. If something happens to me... Don't say that, she snapped. Not now. He paused. Okay, then let's just make sure nothing does. They burst out of the greenhouse into open field, the wet grass glistening beneath gray skies. Then, gunshots. Distant, but getting closer. Nathaniel spun around, pulling her down behind a low stone wall. They ducked, eyes scanning the trees on the estate's edge. We're not alone, he muttered. No kidding, Olivia said, pressing a hand to her chest to calm her pounding heart. More footsteps. Quick, coordinated. Whoever was coming wasn't freelance. This was trained. Mercenaries? She asked. He nodded. Most likely hired by one of the international bidders who got wind of Crosspoint's power. How the hell did they know where we were? Only one way, Nathaniel said through clenched teeth. Marcus. Back in the inn, Marcus sat in his car watching the estate through binoculars. Behind him, his phone buzzed once. A private message. Target confirmed. Override chip is with Blake. Eliminate. No witnesses. He stared at the message for a long moment, jaw tightening. Then he typed one word. Understood. But his hand shook as he sent it. Because no matter how many lies he'd told or how long he'd been playing both sides, there was one thing Marcus hadn't accounted for. That he might start caring. And that was dangerous. In the field, Nathaniel and Olivia sprinted toward a rusted, half-buried shed beneath a tree line. He pulled the doors open, revealing a sleek black vehicle, old but well-maintained. He slid into the driver's seat. She jumped in beside him. "Start it," she urged. He turned the key. Nothing. A second time, nothing. Then the engine sputtered, groaned, and roared to life. They peeled out just as two black-clad figures emerged at the edge of the field, rifles raised. Bullets slammed into the earth around them, kicking up soil. One grazed the back fender. Olivia ducked. "They're aiming for the tires. I noticed." Nathaniel spun the wheel hard, skidding the car onto a hidden dirt road behind the estate that connected to an old maintenance route, a road his father once used for discreet getaways. "How many people know about this road?" Olivia asked. 3, Nathaniel said. 2 are dead. The third is sitting with me. Back at the estate, Marcus walked through the wreckage. Vaughn lay slumped against a wall, alive but unconscious. One of the attackers, masked, armed, stood beside him. "He tried to stall us," the man said. "Of course he did," Marcus replied. He looked around the vault. Empty. "They're gone," he muttered. And then, quietly, a smile. "Good." The masked man tilted his head. "You want them gone?" "No," Marcus said. "I want them desperate. People are most useful when they're scared. When they have no one else left to trust but you." He turned and walked out of the estate, whistling softly. In the car, the rain began to fall harder. Nathaniel gripped the wheel, eyes locked on the road, but his mind was spinning. "Liv," he said suddenly, "there's something I didn't tell you." She turned toward him, tense. "Please don't say it's another secret." "No, not a secret," he said. "Not a secret. More like a risk." She waited. He glanced at her, then back to the road. "The override chip only works once. If we use it to destroy Crosspoint, we can't ever access it again." Olivia blinked. "Okay. But if we don't, we could use it. Expose the players, leak their secrets, shut down the corrupt networks tied to it." She went quiet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can't both have it," Nathaniel said. "This has to be your choice. It always had to be." He pulled the car over near an old covered bridge, killed the engine, and handed her the chip. "It's yours now?" She stared at it, silent. "This is your mother's legacy," he said softly. "And yours. I'm not going to be the one who decides what you do with it." Olivia held the chip in her palm. Rain tapped the windshield like a ticking clock. "I don't want power," she said finally. "I want peace. I want the truth out. But if using this puts people in danger, we'll find a way to protect them," Nathaniel said. "Together?" Her eyes met his. There was no more room for games, no more pretending. Just two people, raw, exhausted, real. She reached into her coat and pulled out the backup drive. "I kept this just in case," she said. "We'll use the drive to decrypt and leak the system. We don't need to keep the chip." "We destroy it," Nathaniel smiled. "You sure?" She nodded. "It ends here. No more hiding." Suddenly, a figure appeared behind the car, knocking on Olivia's window. She gasped. Nathaniel turned sharply, ready to reach for the glove box, but froze. It was Liam, his old personal guard. Nathaniel cracked the window. Liam leaned in. "You two need to move, now." "Why?" Nathaniel asked. Liam's eyes were grim. "Because Marcus just activated the final protocol. You're not just targets anymore." He hesitated. "You're bait." The wind howled through the trees around the covered bridge, and rain fell like needles, slicing through the silence. Olivia stared at Liam through the cracked window, her breath fogging the glass. "What do you mean, we're bait?" Nathaniel leaned forward, voice sharp. "Explain. Now." Liam scanned the woods behind him before answering. "Marcus leaked your coordinates on the dark grid. Crosspoint's Black Protocol. It broadcasts real-time movement of anyone tied to it. The moment you turned on the backup drive, it pinged your location." Olivia's blood ran cold. "He wanted us to activate it." Nathaniel cursed under his breath. "So he could let the wolves come to us?" Liam nodded. "That's how Marcus operates. He pretends to protect you, but he sets the trap, then swoops in as the hero once the damage is done." Olivia glanced at the override chip in her hand. "So what now? Do we run again?" Liam shook his head. "Not this time. You've been running long enough." He looked at Nathaniel. "There's one more way to end this, to shut down Crosspoint without setting off its retaliatory chain." Nathaniel frowned. "How?" "You have to trigger the red lock." Both Nathaniel and Olivia looked at him, confused. Liam stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It was your father's final failsafe, a command buried deep in Crosspoint's root structure. It permanently disables all active nodes and scrambles the data beyond recovery. But there's a catch." "Of course there is," Nathaniel muttered. Liam's expression darkened. "It requires 2 keys, both genetic, one from the system's creator," he looked at Olivia, "and one from its heir." Nathaniel turned to Olivia slowly. Realization dawning. "It was always meant to be us," he said. "You and me, together." Olivia swallowed. "Then let's do it." But Liam didn't move. "There's more," he said. "Once red lock is triggered, the system doesn't just erase data, it sends out a signal, a coded confession. Every file inside Crosspoint goes public. Names, crimes, transactions, everything." Nathaniel paused. "So, no more secrets?" "No more secrets," Liam confirmed, "but that means every single powerful person tied to this, globally, will know who exposed them. You'll be hunted." Olivia looked down at the chip in her hand. Her mother had died protecting her from this. Nathaniel's father had died trying to bury it. And now, they were the ones standing in the final doorway. No more pretending, no more running, only truth. She looked at Nathaniel. "You in?" He didn't blink. "With you? Always." They drove in silence for 10 minutes to an old abandoned broadcast tower, one of Blake Industries' forgotten assets. It had once been used to test encrypted communications before going completely dark. Nathaniel parked the car beneath a rusted overhang, glancing around the perimeter. "Nothing on the motion grid," Liam said, checking his portable scanner. Inside the tower, the floor creaked beneath their feet. Rain dripped through broken panels. A single server terminal still glowed in the corner, a soft green light, blinking like it had been waiting. Olivia sat down in front of it. "This is where she worked, isn't it?" she asked softly. Nathaniel nodded. "Your mother was here the night she disappeared. I found her name in the logs. Amelia Ward was the last person to access this server before the data purge." Olivia reached into her coat and pulled out both the override chip and the backup drive. "I guess I'm finishing what she started." Nathaniel sat beside her. He slid his ring off, the same one from his father, and placed it into the biometric port. The system recognized it immediately. "Access granted." Next, Olivia pressed her thumb to the DNA pad. A soft tone sounded. "Second key verified." A new prompt appeared on the screen. "Activate red lock protocol." "Warning, this will permanently erase and broadcast all Crosspoint data. Confirm YN." She looked at Nathaniel one last time. He reached for her hand. "Let's burn it down," he said. She hit Y. The server whirred. Lights blinked red. On screen, a wave of files began decrypting and uploading to public networks, whistleblower archives, encrypted journalism sites, everything. Crosspoint was unraveling. And for the first time in decades, the truth was running free, but they weren't alone. Outside the tower, Marcus stepped from the shadows. He had no weapons drawn, just a calm, eerily quiet expression. "I was wondering which failsafe you'd choose," he said as he entered. "Didn't think you'd be reckless enough to finish it." Liam moved to intercept, but Marcus held up his hands. "Relax. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be." He looked at Olivia, his gaze sharp. "You did what your mother couldn't. You pulled the trigger without hesitation. I almost respect that." She stood slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "She died because of you." Marcus smirked faintly. "She died because she played the wrong side, just like anyone who trusts Blake will." Nathaniel stepped between them. "It's over, Marcus." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is it? While you were busy pressing buttons, I was buying silence. That's what power is, Olivia. Not truth, not loyalty, just silence." He pulled out a small device, a portable jammer, and crushed it under his heel. A signal cut through the air. "Too late," Olivia said. "The data's out." "I know," Marcus replied, calm and amused. "You think you burned a system. All you did was light a beacon, and now every wolf in the world knows exactly who to hunt." They stared at him, confused. He continued, voice sharp and deliberate. "Do you know what happens when you expose a global system of corruption? It doesn't collapse. It fights back. And you just made yourselves the target." Nathaniel tensed. "And you?" Marcus's smile was thin, calculated. "Me? I don't vanish. I endure. That's the difference between us. You'll carry the blame. I'll carry the power." He stepped toward the door, pausing just before exiting. His gaze locked on Olivia. "I told you before, Olivia, you'd have to choose. And you did, exactly the way I wanted." Then he walked into the rain, his figure swallowed by the storm. Gone. 2 hours later, the world began to react. News outlets everywhere flashed urgent headlines. Leaked files expose corporate blacklist. Secret accounts, government bribes. Whistleblower identity unknown. Blake Industries under global scrutiny. But the whistleblowers weren't unknown, not to the right people. And as Nathaniel and Olivia stood atop the tower watching the sunrise break through the storm, they knew life as they knew it was over. But something else had just begun. A chance to rebuild, a chance to finally live, without lies, without shadows. Nathaniel turned to Olivia, brushing a soaked strand of hair from her face. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I'm not afraid anymore." And neither was he, because whatever came next, they'd face it together. Hand in hand, no masks, no secrets, just truth. 1 week later, they were ghosts now, not hiding, but no longer in plain sight. Nathaniel and Olivia sat on a bench at the edge of a small lakeside town where no one asked questions and no one cared about headlines. The air was clean, the sky wide and blue, and the water reflected the morning sun like glass. The world had changed, so had they. But in a way neither of them expected. They felt lighter, free, not safe, never truly safe again, but real. And after everything, real was enough. In the days following the red lock leak, chaos erupted, names dropped. Systems collapsed, people resigned overnight. CEOs stepped down, politicians were exposed. An entire network of power, money, and manipulation had been burned into public view. Some tried to spin it, others tried to bury it. But it was too late. The truth had taken root. And in the center of the storm, two names remained unconfirmed. A shadow couple, never clearly caught on camera, never formally identified, the whistleblowers of Crosspoint. Some believed they were tech activists. Others said it was Nathaniel Blake himself bringing down the empire he once ruled. But no one could prove it. Because Nathaniel Blake was declared missing, possibly dead. And Olivia Morgan? She was never registered under her real name again. On the lakeside bench, Nathaniel handed her a cup of coffee, still warm. "Looks like we're safe for now," he said, his voice softer than it had ever been in the city. "And—" Olivia took it, her fingers brushing his. "Until the next monster grows another head," he smiled faintly. "Then we keep cutting them off. Together." They sipped in silence for a moment, watching ducks glide across the water like the world had finally slowed down just enough to be ordinary. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The company?" "The power." He thought for a moment. "I used to think power was the only thing that made me matter. And now?" He turned to her. "Now, I think it was the one thing keeping me from ever being me." She smiled. Then, after a beat, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something he hadn't seen since the day they ran. The ring, his father's crest. She held it in her palm, glinting under the morning light. "I kept it," she said, "even after everything." He looked down at it, then back at her. "Why?" "Because it belonged to the man who tried to do the right thing at the end," she said quietly, "and to the man who actually did." Nathaniel said nothing for a moment. Then he took her hand and closed her fingers around the ring. "You wear it," he said. She blinked. "Me?" "It belongs to both of us," he said, "not because of legacy, but because of choice. You chose the truth. You carried the weight when I was too afraid." Her eyes welled up, but the tears didn't fall. She had cried enough. Instead, she reached into her other pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Old, wrinkled. It was the letter from her mother, the one that had started everything. She unfolded it, handed it to him. He read it again. "If you ever find this, it means the truth caught up to us. You were born into something I tried to protect you from, and someone you'll one day need to protect. I couldn't tell you everything, but I know you'll understand when the time comes. Don't run. Don't hide. Just remember, he isn't the enemy." He looked up, eyes full of emotion. "I never deserved her loyalty." "She didn't give it because you deserved it," Olivia whispered. "She gave it because she believed in the version of you that could be better." Nathaniel swallowed hard. And in that moment, everything heavy inside him lifted. Because Olivia hadn't just helped him destroy Crosspoint. She had helped him rebuild himself. That afternoon they walked through the small town like ordinary people, hand in hand. No guards, no suits, no lies. They stopped at a local bookstore, picked up groceries, ate lunch at a sidewalk cafe. People passed them by without a second glance, and for once, Nathaniel didn't need to be recognized to feel seen. As they walked back to the lake near dusk, Olivia suddenly stopped. "What?" he asked, confused. She looked at him. "I want to tell people our story someday." Nathaniel paused. "The whole thing?" She nodded. "Not now, maybe not for years, but one day. I want people to know that the world changed because two people decided to stop running." He took her face in his hands. "And because one of them had the courage to whisper the truth when the other had forgotten how to hear it." She smiled. "If you're pretending, I hope it's not because you've forgotten how to be seen." The words she'd spoken to him that first day, in a conference room to a man in a wheelchair, hiding from his own soul, now circled back like a promise kept. He kissed her, not like a goodbye, not like a fairy tale, but like a beginning. Because that's what it was, a new beginning, not perfect, not peaceful forever, but real and enough. Somewhere far away, deep in a hidden corner of the internet, a final message appeared on a whistleblower forum. "The system has fallen, but the people haven't. Truth lives. Keep watching, and never ever stop asking who benefits from silence." Tweely. O.M. and N.B.'s of Epilogue 6 months later. A young woman in Tokyo stumbles across the leaked Crosspoint archive while researching for a school project. She doesn't understand all of it, the codes, the finance jargon, but she knows one thing: someone risked everything to get this out. She writes a comment beneath the forum post. Whoever you are, thank you. You've changed more than you'll ever know. And somewhere in a quiet lakeside town, Olivia reads it, smiles, and closes her laptop. The end. Now, tell me, if you were in Olivia's place, would you have risked everything to tell the truth, even if it meant losing the person you love? Or would you have stayed silent to protect your heart? Let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your answer. And if this story touched your heart in any way, leave a like, subscribe for more stories like this, and rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. I'd love to know how it made you feel. You matter. Your voice matters. And your presence here means more than you know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.